Well, good morning, good evening, good night. Welcome to another episode of First Light. I cannot believe that we are already in June. This is just amazing. I can't believe this morning. I already had my first conflict, and so that is the fact that my personal assistant did not pack my computer. And so I will be having discussion with my personal assistant, maybe firing my personal assistant today. And that is me. Okay, so anyways, good morning, Richard. Good morning, Dina. I have this on my phone, and so I've had to do this differently. So I'm gonna have to try and catch things in real time. And so it's gonna be interesting to see how that goes. But I want to welcome you all. Good morning, Brenda, as well. And so we're going to be having competing violins this morning because my beautiful wife has a meeting going on right now in Ontario, but she's in her office there. And so, thank you, Richard, that it looks good. And hopefully the sound is there too. That's good too. And so, yes, I hear you, Dina, but yes, on that. And so, good morning, Chrissy. Bienvenue de Quebec. And so it's good to have you with us as well. And I want to welcome everybody. And I want to say it was really cool getting together with a bunch of you on Sunday morning. We had our gathering in the cafe on Sunday morning. I think we're going to do it a little more often. It was kind of cool to get everyone together and just have that bustle going on in there. And the coffee's awesome, and it's a half price, and so that's even awesomer. But anyways, it was just really great to sit down and chat and have people just kind of meet one another and see one another face to face. And we had a bit of a Q&A. Some people asked me, or someone asked just as to the costs behind all of this. And I want to thank our sponsor today, Mark Zuckerberg, who has sponsored this on Facebook. We don't pay anything to do any of this. I do have a light there just because during the winter it gets really, really dark, and so yeah, I just set up a light. But I will say that I was not overly impressed and happy when I just noticed something that you're gonna have to see me every once in a while go like this, because I have no idea what time it is. So we're gonna go until I stop. I just looked at the thing. I was like, oh, I don't know where I am on the clock, and so we're gonna have fun. And so maybe someone wants to put in the chat room, let me know when it's 6:55 or something. Which everyone else is gonna be like, wow. When they watch it later on, they're gonna be like, boy, they're concerned about my rambling. But anyways, yeah. So I don't even know where I was going, but I want to show you the coffee of the day. That was the cafe. So it was just really cool to chat with people, and I have a setup, but no, it's obviously not set up the way it normally is. But the coffee of the day today is, I picked this up. It's really cool. It's sponsored by Canada. And so I got this mug, and I really love it. It's a caribou, and it's got like indigenous art all through it. And I just picked this up recently. And so I thought I would share that with you this morning. Really wish that this platform allowed you to take pictures and put them on there, just so you could show us your coffee and what your setup is. And so, but we don't have that opportunity, so don't worry about it. So I just want to share that this coming Sunday, we start a brand new series called The God Of. Now, Gavin did a great job last week, and I was really glad to have him speak about legacy, knowing that he's part of it. And so you can watch that online, as well as all of these, this year anyways, we are putting them on our YouTube channel now. So slowly but surely, we're going to be adding all of the good morning, Jim. We're going to be adding all of these sessions because we're kind of putting this together as a big package just of 2022, looking at how our vision about pursuing the person and presence of God in us, through us, and around us really kind of fleshes out. But so those are going to be online there. But you can watch last week's message on our Facebook channel or YouTube from Gavin and A Lasting Legacy. It was really good. But we're starting a new series called The God Of. and it's a 4-part series. At least at this point, it's a 4-part series. It may change, but I don't think so. But as you're going to find out in a couple of minutes, we just have to be willing to do whatever, when it comes to change. But so I'm really excited about that, because we're going to be looking at how God changed how God worked in people's lives, specific people in the Bible. And so I'll just leave it alone, and then we'll just kind of let it be starting this Sunday. But I'm really excited about it. Some common stories that probably many of you have heard, but we don't really, or maybe we're going to look at it from a different vantage point. Anyways, we're going to be jumping into this session here today, because, as I said, I have no idea when the clock, maybe even someone wants to let me know when it's 6:45. Okay, it's going to be like 7 of them come up on the screen all at the same time. But I want you in your, I want to ask you, like how last week went. We were talking about, keeping your way pure, and like, so Psalm 119 says, like, how does a young man keep their way pure? And the way meaning about the law, like how keeping that set of rules there. And so just wondering how that went. So feel free to comment or email me. I like getting some messages from some of you, just kind of giving me updates at how things are going there. Here. But today we're going to talk, hopefully, if I get into the time, we're going to look at a verse that's taken out of context. And, I think it's taken out of context. And so you may as well. We do that sometimes. But I just think that we should take a look at that, because today we're going to be talking about conflict, which is, I kind of used Dina's joke there about being conflicted about it from last night's comment on this platform. But we are going to be looking at that. So let's take a moment and let's just pray before I get more conflict going on. So let's just pray. So God, I want to thank you for this day. I want to thank you that you bless the peacemakers, the ones who aim to make peace, Lord. And so I just ask that you would help us today to learn more about how to deal with conflict. Lord, sin brings conflict, and this world will have conflict. And we know that there's conflicts right now around the world that are affecting all of us, and gas prices and wheat and just stability. So God, I pray that you would help us to learn how to deal with conflict in a better way. And so we ask this in your name, Jesus. Amen. All right, well, let's jump right into this thing. So as I said, we've been dealing with God working in us. We did that for the first 13 weeks, and so you'll see that on YouTube. Or you can just scroll back, but it's a long time going back if you want to go through Facebook. And then now we're in this next season, we're looking at God working through us. Like, how is the work in us actually affecting, able to be used through us and impacting others? And so we wanted to look at this idea of conflict. Now, we just came out of a season, or 5 weeks, where we were looking at being an example for the believers. Ultimately, everyone, because if you're going to be an example for the believers, you're going to be an example for everyone. And so we're looking at, setting an example in speech, in life, in love, in faith, and in purity. So we looked at that. And so, again, you can look back on that. But I want to tell you that I think this is the first time that I've done this in first light. I think I've done it once or twice even in a message, but just feeling really compelled to break this down into 2 sessions. So we're going to be looking at conflict for 2 weeks. So if you are upset about that, then maybe this is the discussion to have, because it's about conflict. But I just felt as though there was too much discussion. People have courses in it. People take courses on conflict, and so I have training in dealing with conflict. Not that means I'm an expert as in how I deal with it, but it's part of my training from when I was involved with in Ontario. So the idea here about conflict is I think we need to look at it from 2 different vantage points. But So anyways, this week will be more about how do we deal with it when we, okay, are experiencing conflict with others. We're going to flip the table next week. And what do we do? What's our call? What's the responsibility when people have conflict with us? Because I think that there's a different way of dealing with that. And so we're going to look at that. So this week is more about when you're ticked off at somebody else. Okay, so I want to tell you that conflict, you can put this in the chat room, conflict is unavoidable, period. Conflict is unavoidable. There will be conflict. God calls for us to have unity, but not uniformity. So the moment you have two people in a room, you probably have at least 3 or 4 opinions, right? Like that's the joy of being a pastor, is that, like to please everybody ain't gonna happen when you can't even please yourself, right? And Sherry, Dan, good morning. It's great to have you with us. But so when we're looking at conflict, the idea of conflict is it's gonna happen. Okay, it's bound to happen because there's going to be differing opinions, and that's okay because we want to have the different vantage points. But how do we deal with it when it starts to strike something in us? And that's what I kind of want to get at, is that even perfect couples are never perfectly matched, right? I could go on a real talk on that about marriage health and stuff, but you understand what I'm saying, is that there's a little bit of in every person that you have some sort of relationship with, whether it's marriage or family, or don't talk about family, like crazy Uncle Tom, or whatever it is. But you can put this also in the chat room if you want, that without conflict, there can be no growth. Okay, you cannot grow healthily without conflict. See, again, this is all these little trails that I could take that I'm just like, I'm trying to keep this really concise. But that growth comes from even when you think about going into the gym and doing workouts and stuff, is what you're doing, you're straining your muscles, you're working your muscles so that they grow, so that they can accommodate it. So that's what happens, is that conflict actually helps us grow. So I want to say this though, and you know what, this is just the Craig McKibben version of my theological studies. This is not brought to you by a guy that has more letters in their name than the alphabet with degrees. No, this is just what I have observed about my reading of the Bible. I think that the first conflict in the Bible recorded didn't really happen with man. No, immediately you're jumping to God. Okay, well, you're kind of limiting your options when you're thinking about the beginning of the Bible here. But the first conflict in the Bible, I don't think happened necessarily in mankind. We could think about Cain and Abel, we could think about, Adam and Eve and some of that stuff, but we have, just come with me for a second here, that in Genesis 1, I call it the happy chapter. Everything's good, right? That's what he's saying. Made this, it's good, made that's good, made that is good, made that's good, that's good. And then it was very good. Okay, so it's like everything is peachy. Okay, so Genesis 1, it would be great if the Bible just ended there, but it doesn't. It goes on from Genesis, it hits Genesis 3, and that's when things start to go, it starts to go left here. But in Genesis 1:26, catch this, God says, let us make mankind. So there's already this understanding of Elohim, which is the Hebrew word, which is God's, but it's God in the plural, but it was meant in the Jewish understanding of monotheism, even though it was using the plural, it was just that God is so big that it's just like encompassing. So it always was understood in the singular, but it was written in the plural. Whereas we see that now as the type showing us that there really was this Godhead that we still can't wrap our heads around, but pardon the pun, but it's this Godhead idea. So let us make God let us make mankind in our image here, right? But then we jump to chapter 3. Here's the conflict. It's not with the serpent. There's no conflict with the serpent. The serpent just brings doubt. Okay, there's no conflict there. There's no conflict with Eve, right? In the discussion there. She asks questions, the serpent answers them. There's not even conflict with Adam and Eve. Eve goes, check it out, let's eat the fruit. And then the guy's like, oh, okay, right? That's kind of what we do. But then you have verse 11 with God. God institutes the first conflict in my reading of it. God institutes the first conflict in the Bible in verse 11 when he says, who told you that you were naked? Oh, thank you, Lord. Are you serious? We're there already? Okay, all right, maybe someone's let me know when we get to 6:50. Okay, so anyways, who told you were naked? And who, did you eat from the tree that I commanded you not to eat from? Here's the first conflict, that God has to address something with mankind that he's not happy about. Okay, this is not something. So I think it's arguably, pardon the pun, arguably the first conflict in the Bible. Okay, there's the first time that there was a disagreement. Catch this. There was the first time that there was an offense. Okay, I love the fact that we're going to be talking about this. That God was offended. Okay, he was offended by this. Now I'm offended. Okay, we'll talk about that in a second. But sin, put this in the chat room, sin is an offense of God. It's an offense to God, but it's also an offense of God. Okay, it's being offended. It's offending God, right? It's not about hurting his feelings. He's not like, oh, you hurt my feelings. No, that's not what we're talking about. It is about offending his perfect nature. You have gone against his perfect nature. And so catch this, the value system, which is the law, the value system of God's perfection has been offended. It has been breached. And that's why God comes in with this conflict. So catch this. Conflict is not disagreeing, okay? It's not disagreeing. Conflict comes when there's an impasse. Conflict comes when there's this wall that has to be dealt with, whether it's physical or emotional or mental or spiritual. Conflict comes between humans. Conflict comes when our values are offended. That's when there's conflict. Is that you can go back to any sort of conflict that you've ever had to have, and probably your emotional attachment to it has been based on how much it violated what you value. Okay, even if, let's say as a boss, you have to have a conversation with somebody, so technically it's a conflict, but you're doing it based on your value system of the fact that you are the boss and you have to follow those things, okay? And again, I could just vacillate and go on all these little tangents here, but I'm not going to. That's why I think sometimes people say, I'm offended, okay? When really all they're saying is, I don't like that. Okay, that's not being offended, okay? That's just being upset about something and saying I don't like it. Well, you know what? It's too bad that that's going to happen there. That when you talk about offense, when you talk about conflict, buongiorno Rosanna, buongiorno, and so ¿cómo estás? Okay, so anyways, when you look at this, I love this. We have all these provinces represented here. We probably need to just contact your friends that are in different provinces. I would love to have an all Canada day. That would be awesome if we had people from every province here in every territory. Anyways, but when we look at this, that they're saying that I'm offended, it's just saying that they're hurt, okay? But to be offended truly, okay, truly to be offended means that it has cut to the core of your value system, okay? It has attacked your value system there. So offending, to be truly offended, it means it's probably attacked your sense of loyalty or betrayal or hypocrisy or abuse or your character, integrity. That's when you get offended. So let me ask you this question. So how do we address conflict with others when we feel our values have been offended? Okay, so how do we address this with somebody? How do we deal with conflict with somebody else? When, thank you, preach. But thank you, Chrissy. But how do we deal with conflict when our values, when we have been offended? Okay, so I'm going to quickly deal with some verses here, and I may have to stop. I don't know. Like I said, I'm going to do it in 2 parts anyway, so maybe I'll just stop. We'll see how far we get. So in James chapter 4, verses 1 and 2, it says this. It says, what is the source of wars and fights among you? Okay? Plural. Among you. Okay? Don't they come from your pride, your passions that wage war within you? Okay? You desire and do not have. You murder and covet and cannot obtain. You fight and wage war. I'm going to read this 2 more times, but hear that. I'm just going to read it. Listen to this. It says, what is the source of wars and fights among you? Don't they come from your passions that wage war within you? You desire and do not have. You murder and covet and cannot obtain. You fight and wage war. Okay, I'm going to read it a 3rd time, but now I'm going to read it the way that we want that scripture to be read. Okay, so this isn't the Craig McKibben version. This is the, I don't know, Sinning Sally, okay? And Sinning Stan, whatever it is. Okay, this is the way we want it. What is the source of wars and fights among you? Don't they come from their passions that wage war within them? They desire and do not have. They murder and covet and cannot obtain. They fight and wage war. Again, when it comes to conflict, it's always about them, okay? They're the problem, right? Conflict, remember this, conflict is between 2 people because, at least 2 people, because everyone, at least the 2, all feel that the other person is in the wrong, okay? So if everyone feels that everyone else is in the, if everyone feels that somebody else is in the wrong, then someone's wrong. Okay? I know, it's deep. But that's just called math, okay? You can't have everybody right, okay? So somebody is wrong. So how do you deal with that? So the first thing you're supposed to do, sorry, I was supposed to tell you this. So when I read that verse, I was gonna say the first thing you need to do is check your pulse. Check your pulse, right? It says the idea here that don't they come from your passions? So check your pride. Check yourself. What am I contributing to this? How come this is offending me? I've used this illustration before, but I'll just say this, that it's like this. If on a Sunday morning someone came up to me after church and said, you know what, Pastor Craig, that sermon, horrible. Now, yeah, I'd be disappointed that I disappointed them, but I'd sleep well. If my wife said to me, Craig, that sermon was horrible, what do you mean? Right, why? I've attached the same data, same information, but I've attached a value system about my wife liking me and loving me for who I am. I've attached that to it, so it's the same information. Why does it affect me? So check your pulse. Second thing here, kind of on the same point of what I just addressed with Carrie in the sermon, stick to the facts. Stick to the facts. Maybe someone wants to tell me what time it is because I'm getting a little worried here. But stick to the facts. In Ephesians chapter 4, verse 15, and I've used this verse many times when I'm talking to people privately, Paul says this to the Ephesian church. He says, speaking the truth in love, let us grow in every way into him who is the head, who's called Christ. Now, what I'm going to tell you isn't in a book, and probably was written better in a book. This is just the wisdom of Craig, which is suspect. But anyways, that verse rattled my brain when I read it, because those words, speaking the truth in love, I don't know why it was, maybe it was something I was going through at the time, but it just really affected me to go, wow, this is very important for me to address here. Because if you look at a teeter-totter, and imagine it being that way. Oh, thank you, Brenda, so much. That if when you look at a teeter-totter, that when you have truth and love, it has to be in balance. If you decide to speak all truth and no love, that's called judgment. You can take these notes here. That's called judgment. It's all truth. I don't care how you're taking it. I'm coming in with a cannon. And it's just meaning all truth. And people will say, well, you know what, I'm just going to speak. Okay, let me say this. Just because somebody says, I have to be brutally honest, you never have to be brutal when you're honest. That's just a word to the wise. That honesty doesn't have to be brutal. Honesty can be done with dignity, it can be done with respect. So when there's truth and no love, it's just judgment, okay? Problem, then you got the person who doesn't like dealing with conflict at all. So they have no truth, just shaking their head, and all love. That's called enablement, okay? So you got judgment and you have enablement, okay? So when you have to find that balance between the two on how to do it, those things, okay? So I wish I could tell you this. So that stuff's me. But this quote was not mine, and so I have to give credit where credit is due. Former pastor of First Ave a few years ago. His name is Darren Latham. Okay, Darren Latham. Darren, he said these words to me. We were talking about something. He says, "You know what, Craig?" He says, "Facts are your friends." Yeah, I agree. Facts are your friends. So when you're dealing with, yes, very much, love is the key, Rosanna. But or Sap, it could be either one of you. I'm not really sure who's in there, but I'm just welcome to both of you. But the idea here that when you deal with facts, okay, the feelings are separate. The feelings, catch this, the feelings are necessary to fuel the discussion. But when the feelings should never be the discussion. It should never become the discussion. It should always be about the issue. And so you always, okay, you don't even know I'm laughing. You're gonna understand in about 15 seconds. You can always tell when the facts are now switching to the feelings. When somebody says, "But you always," or "You never," or "I'm the only," or "You don't care," or "You don't love." See, you see all that emotion getting thrown into that there? It's got to come back down to this idea here that stick to the facts, okay? So you're supposed to check your pride, check yourself there, check your pulse is what I call it, and then you also need to stick to the facts. Thirdly, and this is going to be a very bleh, and we may have to pause after this, and then I'm near the end, and part of me is just like, you know what? I'm going to pause on this because I'm going to deal with this part next time. And for those of you old enough that maybe watched, that were like me on a dirt road who only had 2 channels to watch on TV, there was a show called Hammy Hamster. And so put in the chat room if you ever watched Hammy Hamster. Basically, it was just a camera crew that filmed rodents for hours and made a show out of it. But at the very end of every show, he would say, but then there's check your pulse and stick to the facts. But the third thing says, but that's another story. So I think I'm going to end on that, and I'm going to pick it up next week, and we're going to deal with the other story because it's going to help us. Jesus addresses, thank you so much, Linda. This is so funny. I love this. Please do me a favor. In the upcoming weeks, don't do this and put the time in all the time. There will be a conflict going. No, it'll be, I just appreciate you guys doing that thing. So it's good. Linda just showed me that I did need to pause here because this here is a very important piece of dealing with conflict with others. What does Jesus have to say about that? And this is where I'm going to say, we take this verse out of context often. And so if you kind of know where I'm going to be going with what Jesus had to say about conflict, read it and then start reading and saying, where's the verse that Craig's talking about that we often take out of context? So I won't say anything else about that. Don't put it in the chat room because I want to allow you to. We'll talk about that next Thursday when we deal with part 2 with conflict, which is ending this part, and then how do we deal with it when somebody is upset with us. So my prayer and I would say my first step idea for you is the next time you find yourself walking into something that's upsetting you, ask yourself first, okay, is this me? What am I bringing to the table? I can almost guarantee you that in every situation, there was just a recent court case. Well, both got something out of it. Now, maybe one got more than the other, but at the same time, both of them got something. It's like you did something, okay? So like chances are, if there's a conflict, you did something. And then the second thing to do is to stick to the facts. When you do have to address it with somebody, just talk to them about the facts. Speak the truth in love. I'll end with this thought that I'll end with this. Thank you, Linda, for keeping me on point here. That when you talk about speaking the truth with love or in love, if you are needing to speak the truth to somebody, it better hurt. If it hurts you that you have to have this conversation, you're probably pretty close on that teeter-totter of truth and love. Anyways, my prayer to you is that when you deal with conflict this week, because you will, that you do it in a godly way. And I will see you on Sunday morning as we start a brand new series called The God of. Thank you for going through this. Thank you for being my stopwatch. I really appreciate it. And I can't wait to see you guys on Sunday. God bless you. Have a great, wonderful day.